Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 14, Episode 42. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Friday, Steelers Nation, as the Pittsburgh Steelers get ready for their Week 8 game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Pittsburgh and Jacksonville coming off of wins in week number 7. Should be a great game overall this Sunday, 1 o'clock at Acrisure Stadium. Dave, how you doing? We have a busy show today for a Friday, man. We have a lot to talk about.
Oh, absolutely we do. Exciting week, a big test for the Steelers on Sunday with the Jaguars coming to town, and obviously haven't had a lot of success with them over the years when that has happened, when they've come to Pittsburgh and all. But this is definitely a winnable game, and was excited to jump a little bit deeper into the tape on them, and excited for our guest today. I think everybody going to like the first timer that we have when it comes to a beat writer as well too for opposing teams. So it's time to get after it.
For sure. That's going to be Demetrius Harvey. We'll talk to him a little bit later on in the show. He covers the Jaguars for the Florida Times-Union and Jacksonville.com. So we'll plug him and speak with him in just a little bit. But Dave, let's jump right on in. And the big news of the day on Thursday is the return of Cam Heyward to the Pittsburgh Steelers practice scene. He was designated to return off of injured reserve, still remains on IR. The 21-day window it was opening up. He practiced on a limited basis per the team on Thursday, but good to see a number 97 jersey back out on the field.
Boy, that is a great sign. And look, don't want to speak in absolutes. I will be absolutely shocked if Cam Heyward is activated on Saturday to play on Sunday. I don't suppose it's totally out of the question, but especially with him returning on, had he returned on Wednesday and had the window open, maybe a little bit better chance of that. But just a sign that they're ramping them up. And then obviously the Steelers have a short week after this week with the Tennessee Titans game being next Thursday. Will he make it by then? I think it all depends on how he feels and how this ramp up process goes, but should have him back either for the Titans game or at the latest the game after that, which I believe is the Packers game.
Right. And so that's obviously great news there overall. Yeah, I'm with you. I think for this weekend, for this Jags game, is really going to be pushing it, even by Cam Heyward's standards. We're a little surprised as you when it comes to a guy like him and what he's capable of doing. He did speak with the media and mentioned that he was still dealing with a core muscle injury prior to that 49ers game, and then tore the abductor, in the first half of that game, and tried to go back into the game twice, and obviously could not finish things out and required surgery. So, I don't know how interrelated those two things are, but Heyward did reveal there was an injury prior to that may have impacted the actual injury that sent him on IR.
Yeah, and boy, you could tell. I remember back to that 49ers game. You could tell he went exactly when he did it, and then he tried to come back in, and he just couldn't run after that. So
yeah, they ran that toss right, and he's trying, and it just didn't go well.
Yeah, your body lets you know when you can't do it. So look, they need him back for sure. Run defense, and then obviously pass rush. So hopefully they get the repaired version of him ready to go, and I no doubt that he's trained properly and gone through the rehab and probably itching to get back as well too. So we'll see how it plays out. Once again, I'll be shocked if but this team does have an open roster spot. You would think that might be Anthony McFarland on Saturday, but we'll see how it goes. It feels like this is going to be a little bit too quick of a turnaround for him to play against the Jaguars on Sunday. But definitely, I think potentially next Thursday night could be on the table.
We'll keep you posted. Let's look at the rest of the Steelers' Thursday injury report. 2 players not practicing, and wide receiver Deontay Johnson with a hamstring, defensive lineman Larry Ogunjobi with a shoulder, 3 players limited, Joey Porter Jr. with a calf, Levi Wallace with a foot. He did not work on Wednesday and was limited on Thursday. Of course, Heyward with the groin limited, 3 in full. That's linebacker Cole Holcomb, running back Anthony McFarland Jr., and Nate Herbig. Herbig missed Wednesday with an illness. Holcomb with the ankle injury suffered in that win over the Rams. He's been full on Wednesday and Thursday, so definitely should be good to go. And McFarland, you would think, would finally get activated on Saturday for Sunday's game. Of course, the big name here, Deontay Johnson, missing with a hamstring injury. Some concern there, considering what he was dealing with before. You saw Freiermuth get put on IR last week. We'll see. I mean, the alarm bells don't seem to be going off with Johnson the way that they were with Freiermuth. And, Freiermuth was a limited practice. He was practicing and then aggravated it. Johnson, this may have been more of a load management type of thing with him. But I think today's report will be pretty important for Deontay Johnson.
Absolutely. Have they changed the criteria now? It used to be when these guys had their windows open, the 21-day window guys from the IR, I don't believe they needed to be put on the injury report. But now it looks like those guys are being put on the injury report, but I don't think they have to be given statuses for game day. In other words, with Cam Heyward, it'll be interesting to see if he gets any sort of a stat. In other words, it might be an empty slot next to his status. I don't think they have to. The question is I wonder if there's a rule now that those guys that when they have their window open, at least on the weekly, daily participation level, whether or not they go full or limited or do not practice.
Well, we're going to go down an early rabbit hole here, and I don't really I'm a little confused by the wording of this, and so I don't want to spread anything that's incorrect. But did you see a tweet from Howard Balzer yesterday?
Yes.
Is this what you're referencing?
Yeah, about the court.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Designation for players.
Yeah,
returning.
Murray.
Tyler Murray. Right. Here's his tweet, and I want to get your interpretation of it. He says, quote, I learned from an NFL source, rules in 2023 for reserve players practicing allows teams to not have a practice designation Thursday. However, if they don't, there has to be one Friday. If not, player has to be activated and be active on Sunday. And he says a story's coming. I never saw the actual story on that. When he says practice designation, does that mean full limited, or does that mean the Friday questionable, doubtful, out? What is it the designation mean exactly?
Read that again.
Howard's tweet.
Yeah.
It says, I learned from an NFL source, rules in 2023 for reserve players practicing allows teams to not have practice designation Thursday. However, if they don't, there has to be one Friday. If not, player has to be activated and be active on Sunday. So when he says practice designation, does he mean? I
think that means daily, a full, or limited, or a do not practice there.
Not the Friday game status. Okay, so that's why you're seeing, McFarland and Heyward and Johnson last week have day by day.
I thought that was something, and I did see that. I saw the tweet from Bowser, but I didn't go down. I didn't follow up on it or anything like that. But okay, that would what the goal is here is to at least have some sort of a competitive balance there, where a team sees that potentially a guy that has their 21-day window open could be activated on Saturday or however, whenever the game is. Obviously it would be Saturday for a Sunday game or whatnot. So it sounds like that's a competitive balance thing, that at least by the final on a normal week, if a game's on Sunday, another team needs to know, did a guy with his 21-day window, was he limited? Was he full? Was he did not practice? At least so they have an opportunity to prepare for him, is the way I interpret it. Now, it doesn't say, we'll find out today. What happened last week with McFarland? Was he even given a game stat? I think he was even full though. So,
right.
He wouldn't have had a game status if he was questionable. So I guess it'll be interesting to see if Heyward today gets a out questionable or doubtful.
Well, I don't think he will, because Deontay nor McFarland received game statuses. They just had blanks there. They were both full, and so they were listed on the day of their level of participation, but none of them were actually given statuses for questionable or doubtful or out or anything like that. So it does not sound like you actually have to give a status, but you have to give the daily report of participation for transparency. And if you don't by Friday, then that guy actually has to play. And that's going to be how the NFL knows if a guy's going to go or not. So that's my understanding, at least.
All right. So this is new for 2023 then.
Evidently. So
because normally they don't put those returning to those 21-day window guys on the injury report daily there. So
right.
All right, we workshopped that one out. I'm sure the listeners really enjoyed that.
You guys all turn to subsection C of your CBA so we can put you to sleep. Dave, let's talk about something that's given some more attention here. And to me, this has been kind of interesting. I thought the Rams game last week, not that there was much pregame chatter, but it was like a chippy game. It was a lot of like trash talk. Like, you don't think Steelers-Rams, like a Steelers-Ravens game, like a lot of like trash talk and chippiness, kind of a lot of pregame chatter this week between the Jaguars and Steelers, where you got Trevor Lawrence with the terrible towel comments and George Pickens talking about the Jaguars' hope secondary and Rayshon Jenkins, the Jag safety, talking about, that Pickens hasn't seen their corners yet. What do you make of all this? Is this all just much ado about nothing, trying to find a story, or is there some teeth to these headlines?
Yeah, I think of all of them, I think the one by Trevor Lawrence with the little yellow towel. Yeah, I think it's easy to read too much into that, and I wonder if Bill Cowher reads Steelers Depot, because he talked about it on whose show was he on? Oh, McAfee yesterday and all like that. And reminder that Bill Cowher, that Icons episode on him, is that I forget what channel that's Max, or anyway, that's going to air Saturday night somewhere, evidently, the Bill Cowher Icon episode. So that's something to look forward to this weekend. But George Pickens' comment seemed a lot more notable than Trevor Lawrence's is. Look, Lawrence just was asked about first time to Pittsburgh, playing them in Pittsburgh, and asked about if he knows the history of the terrible towel, and the way he phrased it. Yeah, the little yellow towel they wave around makes it sound more demeaning than what it is, But I mean, we wrote about. I thought Josh Carney wrote about it tastefully and all, and didn't write about it as it being derogatory.
Right. To me, it wasn't. To me, Lawrence was not trying to disparage the terrible towel one bit. He was just he was asked, do you know the terrible towels? And he's just trying to describe what they are to the reporter, to say, yes, I'm aware of what they are. So I don't want anyone to think that Lawrence was trying to put down the terrible towel, or I think Cowher misinterpreted how that actually went. Now, I think Pickens is taking a shot back, because you saw Jenkins, Rayshon Jenkins, their starting safety, say respectfully, Pickens has not seen our corners yet. And basically our goal is, those guys can minimize top wide receivers. So I'm betting that came across Pickens' social media at some point, and he's responding back about, the Jaguars have a great front, they get pressure, and they kind of play a hope defense, and the secondary hopes that the pass rush gets home. So that's certainly more of a shot than anything Lawrence had to say.
Boy, it's nothing like a shot like the Jaguars a couple years ago when the mascot had the sign that says terrible towels have Ebola on it.
It's been a wild couple of years, Dave.
Something like that. And all. Look, when it comes to George Pickens, though, it's not trash talk if you back it up, right? So go out there and throw up another 100-yard receiving game against this defense. But obviously, it's. It's probably more manufactured by media and bloggers like us and all so far. But there probably will be a little bit more jawing during that game on Sunday.
Hopefully not too much with Pickens, though, because you have the whole sub story of what happened against the Rams last week, the taunting penalties, and Ben talks about it. So what's going to happen for this game and for all the others is that, defenses are going to try to get under Pickens' skin. Corners are going to go after him. They're going to jaw with him. They're going to talk with him, because you see it on tape. He gets called for taunting, and that became a pretty big story. They're aware of those kinds of things. Pickens talking after the game, guys trying to antagonize me, and he says it didn't work, but it kind of worked. So it's going to happen in this game. He might see his old teammate Tyson Campbell from Georgia. We'll see how that goes. So there's a bunch of little mini plot lines in this game, Dave.
Yeah, there are.
All right, let's get off of that, though, overall. and get to the coordinators. That was Teryl Austin, Matt Canada speaking to the media on Thursday. Let's start with Matt Canada. I don't think there was really anything crazy he had to say overall, but any impressions from his media interview on Thursday, Dave?
Yeah, let me pull it up real quick here, the transcript on it. Let's see. Talked about fourth quarter. Do you think you found something in the fourth quarter with the balance in terms of the run and pass? He says we just started to have some efficiency. We started executing at the level we kind of wanted to. Started to see that it was really good for them. You saw how they fed each other. Nothing really major there. The scripting of the plays, he was asked about how much of that is hope of finding the best 10 to 15 plays to start the game. How much of that is probably exhibition to try to figure out what you can learn about opposing defenses. He says, obviously, we're trying to score every possession. It's always about trying to find the best plays. There is some probing, to use your word, how they're going to play certain look personnel group, but we're always trying to score. We're trying to move the ball, and we must have to continue to find ways to be better early in the game. Look, I don't think there's really any big secret there. You obviously are betting what you think that and they've all talked about this, what Kenny likes to do, down distance circumstances obviously plays into this. I think you are hedging of when you come out in a certain personnel group that you'll probably see this look on the other side. So it's all designed probably based on what your scouting has done. And then also on the flip side, it is a probing aspect of it. All right. Well, we're going to come out in this, and we expect to see this, especially at this portion of the field. I don't think this is rocket science here. And I do believe that they that, I mean, look, we saw the shot play early in the game, in this game against the Rams. If they execute that down the right sideline and Pickett drops that in the bucket to Pickens, you've got an explosive play, and you got the offense moving there. I think it just comes down to they've got to play faster, and they've got to start executing a little bit better earlier in games, and especially in the run game aspect there. So, I mean, it's easy to talk about this when it's not going well, and Lord knows it hasn't early in games. They just need to execute and start moving the football better early in games.
They do. It's undeniably true. The frustration is, and we've had this conversation before, it's not just the Rams game. It's not just the last two games. It's not just the 2023 season. It's been multiple seasons of not just not fast starts, but just objectively slow starts, just being one of the slowest starting teams in football. And there's a reason why they're constantly playing catch up and having to turn it on in the fourth quarter, because they play from behind and they have to climb their way back into games. And that just becomes a recurring theme of this team, of their seasons, and it becomes a little frustrating. So there really isn't much more to say. The only thing I would offer is, I'm just curious, when you have those negative plays, do you go off a script? And I think Kenny Pickett, when he spoke with the media on Wednesday, said, I think we kind of make more out of scripts than they should be, because sometimes you go off a script based on, whatever happens in a certain drive, you get backed up. You probably aren't following your script to a T anymore. So regardless, the fast starts have to continue, but there really isn't anything else to say, because we know they have to be better early in games, and there's really not anything else to speak about until it does improve.
Right, exactly.
He did talk about, and again, this has kind of been a talking point a couple times this week, about the tight ends, lack of involvement, and essentially said those guys will get their touches, their chances at some point, just has not happened yet. So will it happen this week? I think the Jags have some decent linebackers, some decent coverage guys, so we'll see. Of course, still no Pat Freiermuth, but Canada, like Tomlin, not concerned about the lack of tight end production.
Also asked, and we've talked a lot about the tight ends and all like that. It'd just be interesting to see with Pat Freiermuth how they can get those guys involved. I really would like to see them kind of leak out Washington a time or two, maybe get the ball out in his hands real quick, just a yard or even at the line of scrimmage or whatnot, and see what he can do with the ball in his hands. A bigger body running downfield, give those defensive backs something else to kind of think about. Big guy to try to tackle there. But I'm not expecting like 8 targets for the tight ends this weekend.
Yeah, can it just be some situational stuff? 1st and 10 boot, 3rd and short, play action, red zone opportunities. That might be their MO to get the football really more situationally as opposed to, open field, 2nd and 7 type of stuff.
And look, you talk about somebody good with the football in their hands out in space. Connor Heyward's proven to be that guy too.
Right.
Can you do a few things, similar to what I just talked about with Washington, where you leak Connor Heyward out in a situation? Obviously they did that last week with the wind back situation with him. Great play call for the situation, and almost scored in that situation there. So a little bit more of that. I think that will give the Jaguars something else to think about. And he's good with the football so far. It's not like he's got a lot of catches in the NFL, but he seemed to be able to get yards after the catch when given the opportunity.
Not to preview the Jags game too much, but you're just thinking about Heyward from a blocking standpoint. It's always a challenge given his lack of size relative to the average typical size of tight ends. But you're talking about blocking Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker, 2 big, strong, athletic, 1st-round pedigree type of dudes. So how do you do that? I think Pittsburgh has to find some ways to split out these tight ends more and not have them be core to the formation. So these guys are standing up. That might make the Jaguars to walk some people out, or maybe create some RPO situations. I'm not really sure, but there's got to be maybe a better way to try to minimize the lack of size that Heyward has. I don't know if they really quite found that well enough against the Rams. I think there were some issues. They tried to do a couple different things with widening the split of Heyward, but I think it's going to be a challenge in this one because you can't really have those guys block the way that you could of Freiermuth. Not that he's a good blocker, but there's some size there. And then Washington obviously can block, but it's been inconsistent this year for him.
Yeah, that's a good point. Can you do some things with Rodney Williams is a high effort guy for sure, but even when he's on the field, I don't expect him to get a lot of snaps, but maybe widen him out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he played 12 snaps against the Rams. I mean, he may see a similar number. And so some of it's run game stuff, but even pass game stuff. I thought not having tight ends to really be able to block in pass pro last week. Connor Heyward played on a lot of passing downs, and so they really kind of messed with Pittsburgh's protections. They were doing full slides against their 5-down looks, and you saw running backs on outside linebackers and D tackles. It was kind of a unique game plan they just tried to work through. So Jacksonville can play that kind of heavier front as well with some pretty athletic people up front. So we'll see how it looks overall, but Pittsburgh just has to try to work around those challenges.
Let's see. He was asked about, do you worry about like if Darnell Washington is in the game and he is never targeted and he's blocking a lot, defense is going to say, oh, well, this is a run. He says, yeah, that would be the case. I mean, I think it's more not targeted versus the run versus the pass, I guess. Certainly that's real, right? He says, I would have liked to actually heard the audio of this, but we never got that yet, just a transcript. Obviously, that's a real thing. The ball will find him at some point. I think there's some opportunities there, but we're aware of that. That plays right into my hand of what I want them to do with Washington. It's not, you don't have to necessarily use your tight end down the field, so to speak, but you can line him up and kind of block and release and misdirection and get the ball out in his hands that way. So I want full credit if they do that a couple of times in this game, because I think that's something that maybe the Jaguars won't be necessarily looking for, and it's something that Washington did do when he was in college.
And hopefully with more offensive success overall means more red zone opportunities, which means more chances for the tight ends to get involved. That's where a guy like Washington, obviously just given his size and frame, can really do some damage. And so I think just, Pittsburgh can have the red zone success and trips that they had against the Rams on a similar level, then you're going to see the tight ends finally get the football.
Right.
All right, flipping over to DT Cameron Austin. And again, nothing, standing out in a huge way there. To talk about TJ Watt playing 3 snaps over at right outside linebacker. And he says, quote, I think we wanted to try to move TJ because, as you guys know, he gets chipped, double teamed, all kinds of things every play. It's easy if everybody knows where you are all the time. Goes on to say it was a little bit of us trying to move him around, get him in an advantageous position. Does this continue? Do you think it's a useful thought, a good move by Pittsburgh? What are your thoughts on flipping TJ Watt?
Well, and I think Watt has said in so many words that you're going to see some more of that too. I guess the question becomes how much, and obviously TJ, if he has his druthers, would rather play on the left side. But if you can get a tasty one-on-one matchup, or not have three bodies on you on one play, why wouldn't you want to go that route? I think we will see it in this Jaguars game. Look, their tackles aren't great. Even though and people were hearing a little bit of talk with Demetrius Harvey about their rookie Anton Harrison at right tackle there and how he's played so far this season. Wherever TJ goes, though, if the Jaguars can help it, they're going to get help on whatever side that is. So might it be more than the 3 or 4 snaps that we saw against the Rams? It's possible, but it's not like they're not going to know where he's lined up on the field.
Yeah, I think the time you do that is if they're in, when the tight end's to that side, which he often is, because that's kind of the traditional strong side. But can you flip that guy over? Can you flip TJ Watt over if you see kind of the extra attention being given, or maybe there's some sort of alignment where it's pretty clear on a third down they're trying to take Watt away, which, again, every team has done for the last 3 seasons plus. It's not anything new that offenses are doing. So, yeah, I think you'll probably see it some. How useful is it? I mean, I get it, but I just go back to the point that I made Wednesday that, despite all the attention he's seen for all these seasons, he's still been TJ Watt and still been one of the most dominant defensive players in football. So my standpoint was it really wasn't broken. So not a whole lot of effort needs to be required to try to fix what is not broken.
Moving forward, and look, TJ Watt, obviously accomplished pass rusher at this point. Highsmith has come into his own. Maybe, and I don't know how much time they can actually dedicate this now that the season's underway, but let's say moving forward past this year, those two probably need to spend more time focusing on the opposite sides. So you can get into situations where, all right, hey, let's just flip,
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
And all. Now, look, if you go back to his rookie season with TJ Watt, because James Harrison, we did see TJ Watt play on the right side during his rookie season.
And that was his primary position, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, he's done it before. It's just he prefers to have the quarterback's face, looking at the quarterback's face most of the time, and obviously has become more of an accomplished pass rusher on the left side there. So maybe that's something those two can. And once again, it'd be a good question to ask both those guys. Is that something you can really work on in season, or is it something that really needs to be worked out during practices or training camp or something like that to become a little bit more accomplished on the opposite side?
Well, I think for TJ spoken about, he also can do some rushes from his normal left side that he can't do on the right side. I think he's more comfortable with, I'm not sure what it is, his swipes or maybe his swims, about, what hand he's just stronger with overall. So I think the other benefit, I think honestly the biggest benefit is just you kind of force the offense to work a bit harder, especially when they're on the road the way Jacksonville is. You have to communicate. Maybe you're shifting your protection or trying to motion somebody over. Maybe the snap comes off a bit later. Maybe they don't have time to run some other motion. They just another layer in offense has to do at the line to think about that type of stuff, especially on the road when it's a loud environment. You're just kind of stressing that. So frankly, that's probably the biggest advantage. It's not necessarily getting TJ loose, because again, the teams are not going to just be like, oh, TJ's on the other side, so I guess we're going to get him 1v1 and not worry about it. I think it's going to be just kind of stressing some of the communication from the offensive perspective. But we'll see. The Jags have a pretty good left tackle. I think Cam Robinson is solid, and so I think the Steelers would like to have TJ Watt against that rookie as much as possible.
And look, it's not out of the question in certain down distance situations. Can you do something where you put three outside linebackers on the field and maybe have TJ Watt float around in the middle there?
Yeah, they've done that before. They did that in 2020 with Highsmith and Bud and Watt. They did that in 21 with Ingram and TJ and Highsmith. So haven't seen that this year because the inside linebacker play, I think, overall has been stronger, and Holcomb should play this week. So I'm not sure if we'll see it, but it's always, I think, an option for this team because you got good depth this year, and that's really important.
I mean, obviously, you're more likely to see that in long distance situations, right?
I think Pittsburgh used it more in shorter yardage. I don't. I'd have to go check the charting on that. It's kind of been on some of their overfront type of stuff. So I'd have to look at the charting, but I don't know if that was necessarily a really third and long type thing. Because usually, and long, you're in your dime package, and so you're kind of get some fewer linebackers out there. So I think it's something that can be used in different situations.
All right. What else about Joey Porter?
Yeah, I mean, I think Austin at this point, what more can he say about Joey Porter? He just gets asked every week, and Austin just kind of says, yeah, he's playing well, he's progressing, and not committing to anything. But I think we all know the score at this point. Porter's playing a lot. That toothpaste not going back in the tube. He's going to be, maybe not the technical starter, not the every down 100% snap player, but he's going to work in all nickel situations, essentially, obviously all dime situations, and so he's going to be, a 75-ish% type of player. The question is the domino effect. You see Patrick Peterson more on the right side. I would expect to see that. He's going to play in the slot more as well. I think what you saw against the Rams will basically be their blueprint going forward.
Now, the Jaguars play a lot of 11 personnel, but they don't probably play it, or they don't play it, use it as much as the Rams did. So are we going to come out of this game with Porter technically playing a lower percentage of snaps than he played against the Rams?
That's a good question because, the Rams were essentially, they're just an 11 personnel team. That's all that they use. In the few snaps of when Pittsburgh was in their base, let me look at my charting and see if Porter got any work in Pittsburgh's base 3-4. Just give me 1 second. Again, there were only a couple of snaps where they were in their true base 3-4. And looks like Porter, he did not start the game in their base, but he did play the last, looks like 9 snaps in Pittsburgh's base 3-4. So, we'll see on that overall and kind of see where Levi Wallace is at with that foot as well. But actually, again, it's going to ebb and flow a little bit. And as you said, Jacksonville can go heavier than the Rams, but their offense is pretty similar, I think, in terms of skill and kind of schematic construction. So, I'm anticipating a similar number this week.
All right. Let's see. He was asked about Nick Herbig supposed to rush when he got his sack against the Rams. And Austin said, we'll say yes. How is that? And then laughter. Did you notice anything specifically on that play?
That's interesting. I think Herbig made a comment about, what did he say? Didn't Herbig say something that was kind of different about that snap?
Something I know he said something about the fans and all, but
yeah, I'll have to check. Let me try to pull it up here. I mean, because somebody asked, was TJ supposed to drop on that on the interception? And yes, he was supposed to drop. It was pretty clear he was in coverage to start the snap. It wasn't someone tried to say it was a James Harrison Super Bowl situation. Were they blitzing or something, Herbig, on that sack?
I forgot to go back last night and just reading the transcript. I had it noted to do last night, and I'm easily distracted. I forgot to go back and look at it.
They did actually blitz Quan on that play, according to my charting. I don't know if that was a green dog. They rushed 5, so I'll have to go back and check that one. I guess with the way Austin says it, maybe he wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this: that tackle got out of the stance slow, and it was in, Herbig's got such a good get off that was an easy win.
Yeah. So you take it. Even if he wasn't supposed to, you're happy that he did because it worked out for the Steelers defense. I'm looking at this play. Actually, just happened to pull it up here. Let's see if he was supposed to or not. It looks like the defense was making a check.
You got that sixth sense of being able to go right to the play.
Right. At this point, you click through it so much, you can just kind of find it. I don't know. The whole play is pretty weird, Dave. Just watching the Rams offensive line, just kind of, I don't know. It's a weird looking play all around. So I'd have to go back and check it. But Pittsburgh's making a call here late. And I don't know if Herbig ever got that message, but this one's kind of a really broken play. It looks like for both sides.
Okay.
Also, Austin talking about James Pierre, a chance for him to play. We'll see with Levi Wallace with that foot. Austin admitting that Pierre struggled in the past, but he's done a good job recently. So one last chance maybe for James Pierre to try to make something out of his career, to be more than just a special teamer.
Yeah, we'll see. And definitely you don't want to get in a situation where you're having to play him a lot of snaps. The things with him is the whole eyes thing, right?
Yeah, I think it's just consistency, football IQ, above the neck type stuff. To me, he's a talented guy. He's big, he's physical. I think he's athletic overall. It's just trying to find that consistency and really play with your technique. I think he's been a frustrating guy overall that just has never really been able to play to, I think, his ceiling.
What does Keanu Benton have to do to get more reps? Teryl Austin says, I think he's getting plenty of reps. I think he's playing kind of how we do. I know Cam is an anomaly in terms of playing so many plays when he was out there, but we would like to keep those guys in terms of rotation fairly equal so they're fresh. All that said, it feels like they could get Keanu on the field a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, again, I know he's versatile and a quality pass rusher, but he's been a bit more of a base guy than a sub package guy. So when you play against the Rams, who are going to keep you in your sub package, 90% of the time, you're going to probably have fewer snaps. So I thought Austin made a good point, though. We are kind of spoiled. We get used to Cam Heyward and Tua and those guys playing 75 to 80, +% of the snaps. And that's not normal. Most defensive linemen, most of those big guys don't do that. So you can't expect, Benton, especially a rookie, to come in and kind of play that kind of snap. So, I think there's always a chance to play Benton a bit more. I think maybe you should get some more looks in nickel and dime packages, kind of, not be just this rotational, purely rotational type of guy. But overall, Benton's playing, he's playing well, he's staying fresh. And so I'm okay with it.
All right. What else anything else from Austin stick out to you here?
Yeah, just one quick comment on Darius Rush and new acquisition, the cornerback. We don't expect to see this week in this game and be dressed, and probably won't be active for a while there, but talked about, he's long, big, athletic, fast type of corner. And Austin said you need a bunch of young corners in the hopper. You never know what's going to happen with injury. And he didn't say this part, but I'm just thinking about this. Levi Wallace a free agent after this year. James Pierre a free agent after this year. Patrick Peterson's status a bit uncertain right now going into the future. Corey Trice injured and won't get back until the spring, the summer. So could Rush be an impact guy for next year? He's on his third team as a rookie. That's not a great sign, but I was a fan of him coming out. So, I think there's some potential and worth a look.
Yeah, it feels like a not now situation, though.
Yeah, he's
unless injury.
Right, not going to be ready right now, that's for sure. But there's some special teams value too. So I think, if he did have to dress, he's not going to hopefully play a defensive snap, but can he be a gunner for a little bit? I think he can do that. He did that at South Carolina, even in the senior season. So that's a guy that can maybe make an impact on teams as opposed to at actual true cornerback.
Is Minkah Fitzpatrick doing a lot more dirty work as opposed to ball searching? Yeah, he has been. that
the honest truth.
That's what it's been. Follow up: is he okay with that? And how is he doing? He says, "Yeah, Minkah's okay because all he cares about is if we're winning. All the guys want to play, but he cares that we're winning, and that's the most important." Here's the good and we're going to segue here in just a moment to our interview with Demetrius Harvey here. But, man, the Jags love to attack the edge, man. And they're not such a great team running between the tackles overall. And the Steelers have had a lot of issues with runs between the tackles so far this season. Hopefully, maybe this is a game where Minkah has to do a little bit less dirty work other than maybe helping out over on the edges.
You hope so, but we said that, a lot of times at the Rams game, he wouldn't have to be as involved against the run. I think whenever you're an 11 personality, the way that the Rams are, the way that the Jaguars, generally speaking, are, I think Pittsburgh's run defense suffers. They as I said, I think on Wednesday's show, they want to play in their base. They want to kind of compact things and, have their nose tackle out there and really get into that kind of scrappy physical fight up front. And that's how they win when they're in nickel and they have less people to fit the run. I think issues tend to pop up. So I'm not sure. I mean, Minkah's had to make a bunch of tackles in basically every game this year. I don't know if this weekend will be an exception.
All
right. Before we get into Demetrius, I just have to talk about this here. I know the NFL trade deadline's coming up. Can we just kind of have a blanket statement? We don't know what's going to happen with Pittsburgh or the NFL, but there's been so many rumors, and I have big, massive air quotes about this, about Pittsburgh, and they're not trading for. I wish they were trading for all the guys, Derrick Henry and Justin Simmons and DeAndre Hopkins. We got to all tone it down here a little bit. Dave and I will talk about trade stuff occasionally. We did a little bit on Wednesday show, some cornerback stuff, and I'm not ruling out the possibility of them making some sort of move. But the NFL loses its mind this time of year. We're trying to dot connect and Stan Moore getting traded. Let's all turn the dial down a couple of notches.
Look, I have learned over the years not to say unequivocally, no, this is not going to happen. Especially now you got a GM that's like Omar, that seems to be a little bit more aggressive. I'm sure the phone is getting picked up and calls are getting answered, and maybe a call or two are getting made. But some of this stuff is just out there. I mean, look, and we if Alex and I truly thought that there was a player or two or a position that this team might go after, we would have no problem speculating on that kind of stuff. But we're not going to write about or talk about and once again, if it happens, we'll come back and say, my God, I didn't see that one coming.
Right. And we'll have lots to talk about if these things happen.
Right. Hopkins and Henry and
who thinks they're trading for Derrick Henry? Like, what does that even make mean, man?
Simmons and look, I understand the Patrick Surtain. I mean, who wouldn't want a young Patrick Surtain coming into the fold and all? But there's going to be, assuming he is on the market, there's going to be a lot of teams that would like to have a Patrick Surtain. And what is a team going to have to give up to get a guy like that as well, too? Now, you're more what we learned from the whole Minkah Fitzpatrick thing is all right, if it's a young player, high pedigree, that's got a couple of years left on his rookie deal, that's not expensive right now, yeah, you could visualize at this point maybe a first or second round pick being dealt. But let me tell you, the Broncos would be out of their ever-loving mind if they let him go for less than a first-round draft pick, but even a package on top of that, because he is so big, because of all those. A lot of reason why Minkah got jettisoned, I think, was he wasn't very happy in that system at the time, how it was being used. There were a lot of facts. They were trying to rebuild and all like that. And, I suppose you could say the same thing about Surtain and all. But and as good as Minkah's been, there's more value to a young pedigree, in my opinion, a young pedigree corner than there is a safety.
And to our knowledge, Surtain has not asked for a trade, correct? Right. Minkah actively asked for a trade. That's why Miami dealt him. Minkah said, I want out, trade me.
Right. So, look, could something happen here in this next, by the trade deadline and the Steelers pick up somebody? Yes. If they do, though, I have a feeling that it's going to be, maybe deflating to the fan base overall. So, man, I really wanted something sexier than that, kind of thing. I just, and we've stated, I don't think anything's going to happen with the Steelers. But if it does, I don't think it's going to be damn near anywhere sexy as what people are writing about and linking the dots to. And maybe I'm wrong. Like I said, I've learned I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but I will be shocked if it's a Henry or even a Hopkins. Yeah, I realize Hopkins, you can get him on the cheap right now when it comes to his 2023 money and all like that. I would just be shocked if we're talking about a big name here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible something happens. I might be a bit more open to the idea than you are. Pittsburgh, a competitive team that's got a chance to make the playoffs this year, that has some obvious needs, and maybe there's somebody out there that you can get. But we just got to turn Madden off for a second. You're not going to trade for every single all-star type of player. Just not going to happen. So, in whatever happens, we'll be able to spend the next 2 weeks talking about. So I'm not going to waste a lot of breath and energy on debating these hypotheticals that probably won't happen. And if they do happen, then we'll talk about it whenever it actually occurs. I promise you we'll find things to talk about if they trade for a Justin Simmons. We'll have our plate pretty full there, but don't count on those things happening. And again, it just bugs me a bit, because then the whole world talks about that for a week, and it's like we can talk about things that are here and now and talk about the Jaguars and talk about the state of this current team and guys who are actually Pittsburgh Steelers, instead of just wasting our breath on all this speculation that people suddenly believe becomes true that, basically has no chance of happening.
Right. The speculation and the way the internet works and all, the speculation becomes reports,
right? Exactly.
Somehow. And then when something like that doesn't happen, people are upset, you know?
Yeah. Why didn't they were supposed to trade for Surtain and Simmons and Hopkins? Why didn't they do all this? It's like, well, the NFL, these trades, it's not the NBA and, you know, hockey where these trades are more frequent with bigger names. You don't see that type of movement. And again, some of this stuff can happen around the league. You know, Henry could get moved. I don't know, but you know, he's not coming to Pittsburgh. I can just tell you that much.
And hey, look, I thought you threw out a good suggestion the other day at the end of the podcast. I mean, that though is kind of the magnitude that I foresee if something does happen with, who was it, Henderson?
Yeah, CJ Henderson. Yeah, I think a trade for a corner is possible. I think trying to find that name is tough. I mean, Henderson's not had a great year, and you look at some other names that I think, you know, would make sense maybe on paper, a Marcus Peters or, you know, Kendall Fuller in Washington. And I'm just kind of spitballing names. I've just kind of gone through, you know, a list of them there. There's not really one that screams this one makes the most amount of sense to you. I think it's possible, but again, it's you just kind of get into the pie in the sky scenarios of what are they gonna do with Justin Simmons? I mean, he's a great player, but you already have one free safety. You don't need, you know, what are you gonna do with him? So, and then the cost it's gonna take to acquire, and Sean Payton needs some guys to win next year. You know, they're not gonna win this year, and they need some guys to build around for next season. So, I just, you know, I think more to the point, as you said, this thing gets, you know, written about one place, and all of a sudden becomes, oh, it's a rumor, and then a report, and then, oh my goodness, it might actually happen, and it actually never really had much of a chance, and it was just a, you know, totally media created type of story, and that can get frustrating.
And we're missing out on a lot of clicks by not writing about this stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, intentionally. You know, we don't. You know, we're not choosing to write about that stuff. Probably at our own hurting ourselves in the process, but we just don't want to waste that time on that kind of stuff. Anyway, I'm getting off my soapbox there. Let's now transition to the here and now and talk to our friend Demetrius Harvey, who covers the Jacksonville Jaguars for the Florida Times Union and Jacksonville.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Demetrius82. Dave, let's take a pause and come back with Demetrius.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Friday, and as usual, we'd like to have a beat writer on that covers the other team that the Pittsburgh Steelers will be playing. And this is Week 8, and that means the Pittsburgh Steelers will be hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars at Acrisure Stadium on Sunday. And with us this week, a first-timer on the Terrible Podcast, Demetrius Harvey. Demetrius covers the Jaguars for the Florida Times Union. You can follow his or read his work online at Jacksonville.com. Just click the Jaguars section there. When you get to the homepage, it'll take you to the Jaguars coverage there. And you should be following Demetrius Harvey on Twitter this week at Demetrius82. And that's Demetrius. Hey, Demetrius, welcome to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.
I appreciate it. I've been following the Steelers Depot for a long time now, just in general, honestly. And you guys do an awesome job over there. I always go for the combine stats, things like that. It's just good. So I'm glad to be on.
All right. Glad to have you for a first timer here. And look, let's talk some football here for the next 20 minutes or so. The Steelers hosting the Jaguars on Sunday. The Jaguars off to a good start this season, led by Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne in the backfield there. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. Really overall, the thing that sticks out of we get the tape done, you know, late on Thursday night and give away the secret here. We're recording this on Thursday night due to Demetrius's schedule here, but I already looked at the New Orleans game. Obviously that was televised, and Jacksonville's had a long week here. The thing that sticks out to me on offense when you talk about the Jaguars is Travis Etienne, especially running the football. And they like to attack those edges quite a bit. Is that kind of what we're going to see when we look at, you know, other games on the All-22? Is that this is a team that likes to run the ball on the perimeter?
Absolutely. The perimeter is honestly what the Jaguars sort of hang their hat on. You'll see that in not just runs, but also passes. They're very horizontal offense at times. I guess West Coast is how some would describe it. You know, they'll do a lot of wide receiver screens, sort of extension of the run game sort of plays. And, you know, with Travis obviously getting to the edge, that's where he makes his money. I mean, the guy obviously has 2 touchdowns in each of the last 3 games. he's been fantastic for the team now. While his yards per carry is down about a yard or 1.1 yards, something like that, from last year. But a lot of that, in my opinion, has to do with sort of not only just the blocking up front, but also, they're sending him in there on those short yardage situations, which the Jags do struggle at. So, those 3rd and 1s, 4th and 1s, Travis is in there. He actually leads the league in carries. He's been used that often. And so, it's sort of a situation where, getting him outside the tackle, getting him around, pulling a guard, having him out in front, that's sort of where Travis excels. And, obviously he can still run between the tackles, pop it loose every now and then. But yeah, that's pretty much where he makes his money, and he's had some success this year.
Yeah, I did notice that they do like to pull one or even really 2 offensive linemen at a time on offense there, and to kind of help and get those wide receivers involved in the blocking on the edge. I think they do a good job at that overall. I want to talk quickly about the right tackle, Anton Harrison. That's a guy that we looked at quite a bit during the pre-draft process, thinking that, if the Steelers didn't go tackle in the first round or something, that maybe Harrison would be a guy on their radar. How has he looked through the first part of this season?
Yeah, he's actually been probably, and it's exciting to talk about when you think of young players and ascending. He's really been one of the most improved players through the first 7 weeks of the season. If you just go back and look at week 2 against Chris Jones. Now, granted, everyone's going to struggle against Chris Jones, but it was an all-timer sort of bad game, and he'll admit that. That was not his best game, and that's something where he actually has grown from. Some teams or some players, they'll have a bad game, especially early on in their careers, and they'll sort of recluse or go into a shell, or all of a sudden that's the norm. Every week we're saying, oh well, Anton's out there, so hopefully he doesn't give up 3 sacks. That's sort of the mindset that the fans or the coaches or the players would have at that time. But for Anton, no, it's been great. He's been improving every single week. Honestly, even the past 2 or 3 games, I don't even remember saying his name. And whenever you don't say a name of an offensive lineman, unless it's an amazing tackle or amazing block, that's probably a really good thing. So yeah, he's been very good, and I think that this is obviously going to be an incredible test this week against TJ Watt or Highsmith. Both are great players. Obviously, Watt is in my opinion, a future Hall of Fame player. So there's going to be some struggles. I expect them to help him out a little bit, but yeah, Anton has looked good. He's looked athletic. I talked to the offensive line coach Phil Rauscher before the season. He talked about how Anton's feet are just incredibly quick. They're probably some of the fastest that he's seen, even more than Darisaw, I believe, in Minnesota. So that's some high praise for a guy who's coached some pretty good offensive linemen in his day. He's also coached Brandon Sheriff, still does. So it's been interesting to see his development, and yeah, he's been looking pretty good.
He'll obviously have a big test with TJ Watt, but I would imagine, like most of the teams around the league right now, he's going to have plenty of help over on that other side. I would imagine you would think that's going to be the attack on him.
Yeah, and I think even Doug said it Monday or Wednesday, I guess. He said, yeah, that's absolutely, you have to help out. Now, how often is that going to come? I don't know. Maybe every play, maybe whatever. But it seems to not really matter against TJ from what I've seen. So, they're going to have their hands full regardless, in my opinion.
And Demetrius, all that's in an effort to protect Trevor Lawrence. I know we talk so much in Pittsburgh. We talk about the second-year jump for quarterbacks, Kenny Pickett, year 1 to year 2. That was the discussion point last year with Lawrence. I'm curious, though, has there been kind of that third-year jump for Lawrence, especially second year in this system with Doug Peterson after that, kind of crazy rocky rookie season with Meyer and everything that happened there? Is there something different about Lawrence's game this year than even last year?
Yeah, actually, I really do think that he sort of picked up where he left off last year. And I know that it doesn't show in the touchdown numbers. A lot of people like to point to that. But you got to realize, too, the Jaguars, they're not necessarily struggling to score points. They've scored 30-something the last couple of games. I understand, there was a touchdown return. But in any event, the passing game hasn't necessarily been the worst thing about this team. It's been the short yardage, third down stuff. So, for Trevor going into this third year, we all expected him to at least continue where he left off. And I feel like, pretty confident in saying that he accuracy wise is even better. And that might not show in the numbers. I don't know exactly what his numbers are, but you can just kind of tell if you look at the tape how pinpoint accurate his passes are. Rarely will he throw a ball that's like, oh wow, shouldn't have thrown that. So he's improved. I think his processing speed has gotten better. He's getting rid of the ball even faster. He was already one of the fastest players last year getting rid of the ball. They don't take downfield shots too often, just by the nature of defensive lines these days. Having Zay Jones out, teams bracketing Calvin Ridley, so a lot of stuff is over the middle. Some of the deep shot stuff happens still, but he's an improving player. I think that he's pretty much everything that they have asked for. You would want his touchdown numbers to be a little higher, I guess. But other than that, I really do feel like he's taken that sort of third year jump. Is he in the elite status yet? I don't think so necessarily. You can't say that just this second, but at least you can say that he's trending in that direction. I think that that's what they want.
Alex, is 30-something points a game, is that legal?
I think only in the state of Florida. I don't know if PA has grandfathered that in there. I think actually maybe the East Coast side has. The West Coast has still not gotten there yet.
Okay, go ahead, Alex.
When I watch this team, Demetrius, you look at the skill guys, people talk about, Lawrence, Etienne, Kirk, Ridley. I love watching Evan Ingram. The numbers might not be super gaudy, but I've been a big fan of him coming out of Ole Miss. I mean, he does everything for this offense. He's the sniffer in pass protection. He gets it in the backfield. He's, using the short game, can make catches downfield. How integral is he to this offense, especially as you mentioned with Ridley getting a lot of attention this year?
Incredibly so. He's been he's probably one of the most underappreciated players on this team. I think, the fans love him and they say his name often. I don't think he's underappreciated there, but just in terms of the national coverage, you don't hear a lot about Evan Ingram. You hear about Christian Kirk, obviously. You hear about Calvin Ridley. You hear about Travis Etienne. And for a while in the offseason, you were hearing about Tank Bigsby more than Evan Ingram. And, it's one of those situations where he's playing tight end. So it's not a glamorous position. But when you watch him play, he's an animal. I mean, the guy is aggressive in terms of when he catches the ball, you're not going to bring him down right away. He's a guy that can gallop. He runs through any arm tackle. He's fast. He's physical. Pretty much everything that you saw out of him from Ole Miss, he sort of translated and turned it into a different kind of game in the NFL with the Jaguars, at least. Obviously the knock on him coming into Jacksonville, coming from New York, was his drops. And this year, I can't even remember a drop that he had. Last year, he had only a few, maybe three. And so, it's a situation where I think that he's in a great spot mentally. I actually would want to plug ESPN.com, Mike DeRocca, who also covers the Jags. He did a really good in-depth story on Evan Ingram last week, and it's great, and it shows his journey and sort of where he's come from, and the dark times. He said that in public he would say that Giants fans and the criticism didn't get to him, but really it was something that was sort of on his mind. His confidence was getting lost. Last year, he said that against the Titans, where he had I think it was like 154 yards, something like that, 3 touchdowns, whatever the stats were, it was his best game last season, and that's sort of when it all clicked for him, and he's loved it here ever since. And yeah, he's a very integral part of this offense. He's the second most targeted player. He's going to get the ball at least 5 times a game, it feels like. So yeah, he's somebody that's important, somebody you have to be careful and mindful of.
Demetrius, before we switch over to the defensive side of football, what's the injury outlook? I know it's only Thursday, and a lot of things can change on Friday and Saturday and all like that. But anybody of note looking like they're going to miss this game?
Are you talking about for the offense or just
for both sides? Yeah, either way.
Yeah, so I mean they have a few guys. Zay Jones, Walker Little's the starting left guard right now. He had started at left tackle, but they moved him to guard. He's been hurt for the past couple weeks since the Bills game in London. He's He's limited this week. I would be very surprised if he gave it a go on Sunday, just because the Jags have a bye week upcoming. That's another week for him to be able to rest. They feel good about having Tyler Shatley. Obviously, they like Walker Little inside a little bit more. But he's probably not going to go. Zay Jones, in my opinion, the same thing, especially because he hasn't practiced Wednesday or Thursday. I don't expect him to practice tomorrow or Friday either. I don't expect him to play. They'll give him another week. Trevor's going to be fine. He's probably not going to practice in full this week, but he'll be fine. Brandon Sheriff's going to be fine. Who else? Devon Hamilton he's been out since training camp essentially, and it was with a back ailment that they described. It was a medical issue with his back. He's been out for that long, but he's practiced full the last couple of weeks coming off of IR. I actually expect him to be back in. I don't know if he's going to be in the starting lineup, but he'll play some snaps. I think so against the Steelers. Tyson Campbell is kind of a wild card because he just got that hamstring injury 2 weeks ago, limited this week. I was kind of surprised to see him on the field, so I would say 50-50 on him. Cisco is going to be interesting to see too. I haven't heard too much about him, but I think he'll be able to give it a go this week. We'll see. But that's the rundown, I think, of all the Jags injuries this week.
All right. Now, when you talk about defensive side of football, you look at the sack production. It seems like that's mostly come out of their two edge guys in Josh Allen and obviously Trayvon Walker. They're really fantastic. And I think Josh Allen leads the team and is having a fantastic. Hard to believe he's already in his third season. Seems like yesterday we were writing up a draft profile on him, though, but he really is showing good. Those guys don't switch sides too often, do they? They pretty much stay on their respective sides, right?
Yeah, they'll stay. I'm drawing a blank on which side each guy plays on. I think Josh on the left and then Trayvon on the right. It might be the other way around.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
But yeah, they'll stay on the same side. Yeah, Josh is entering his fifth year. I mean that's crazy, right? Just to think about. This is his fifth season in the NFL. He's gonna be a free agent next year. So yeah, but those two guys, especially Josh, I think has been tremendous. I think this is Josh's best year easily. He's on pace to match or actually surpass fully his first year numbers, which was 10.5 sacks. It's not all about sacks for this defense, though. I mean, this defense only has, I think, 13 on the year. I think that's ranked like 28th or something in the NFL. It's pretty low. It's not a very productive defense, but what they can do is sort of make you one-dimensional, and that's a lot to do with Trayvon Walker, who's on the other side. He sort of sets the tone for the line of scrimmage. Him, Foley Fatukasi, Roy Robertson Harris, and of course Josh Allen as well. Those guys really set the tone. And I think that Trayvon, his best skill set really is, sort of edge setter, the run defender. I mean, you can talk about his sack numbers all you want. Should he have been taking number one with given the pass rush productivity? You can argue that all day, but at the end of the day, you watch the film. He's still a good football player. He's a guy who could probably start for most teams, just being a down, defensive end in a 3-4 maybe, or a big end in a 4-3 sort of system. I do think he's been a little miscast in Jacksonville, but that's what they got. But yeah, those are the two guys who really threaten you, and I think that that's something encouraging if you're Jacksonville to see the growth from Josh, and then sort of the growth in different ways for Trayvon.
I think when you look at them overall, I think they're mostly a zone coverage team, right? And then on top of it, I think they lead the NFL in takeaways right now. And I think even then, I think they got like 7 forced fumble takeaways. We know how weird that stat can be because it's so unpredictable when it comes to fumbles. But this team seems like, and the other thing that sticks out between running plays of 10 yards or more and passing plays of 20 yards or more, they're in, I think, the top 5 or 6 in the NFL when it comes to not allowing those kind of explosive plays. So when you add all of that together, that's why that's why they seem to be having they might not look good statistically overall if you just go stat hunting on them, but because they take that football away and tackle the catch and play a lot of zone, that's what's been keeping them in there. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. They basically, their zone defense, they would like to play man a little bit more. I think that's sort of predicated off of how, what offense they're going up against. But the offenses they have been going up against lately, zone has been a pretty good way to sort of stop those deep plays, stop those explosives from happening. They do a really, really good job at stopping the run. I think they're fourth in the league in terms of yards per game allowed on the ground. So that's opened things up for them to get those turnovers, to get those takeaways, things like that. You're right. Fumble recoveries are sort of misleading just because those are so random. The ball just might not bounce your way on a certain down, or it might bounce the opposite way. Maybe it bounced right into your lap. Those kind of things. It's weird. Interceptions are a little better. Obviously, they have two guys with 3 picks, Cisco and Darius Williams, and then a few guys with one. And I think that is sort of more indicative of what they've been able to do and how sticky in coverage they've been. I think their front 7, including the linebacker, obviously, Foye and then Devin Lloyd, those 2 guys and the rest of the defensive line have been outstanding, which has enabled them to sort of be this takeaway team where, teams are going to dink and duck their way downfield. We saw that on Thursday with Derek Carr. He barely passed the ball over 10 yards. But they're not going to necessarily score every single drive, and that's sort of what they pride themselves on. It doesn't have to be as dramatic as maybe a Gus Bradley scheme, where you're probably going to dink and dunk your way downfield and then score most likely, but it's more of probably a more aggressive version of that 3-4, just different. They like to disguise a lot. It's really been interesting or incredible to see how different they look this year compared to last. And one last thing on the defense for me, they're ranked 31st in pass yards allowed, but that's really misleading when teams are not only behind a little bit, but also passing as often as they do. I think Derek Carr at 55 passing attempts, Gardner Minshew, the same thing. When they're passing that much, you're going to give up passing yards. That's just natural. So they're a better defense than I think the stats give them credit for, to your point. And a lot of that just has to do with a lot of growth from these guys and sort of just making impact plays when they come to them.
When I would grow up and watch NFL primetime and catch the week's highlights, and anytime there'd be a trick play, Chris Berman would say those tricky, whatever the team is. When I watch the Jaguars, I feel like the tricky Jacksonville Jaguars with Logan Cook running some fakes. You got I think Christian Kirk threw a pass. They had a wildcat play for a touchdown off a turnover against the Colts for ETN. Is that just a Peterson type thing? Is that because they have the people they think they can do that type of stuff? Mike Tomlin even made the comment that we're on alert for those kinds of things. So is there any rhyme or reason for why they seem to be so trick play happy?
Yeah, no, it's a combination. I think that they have players like Travis Etienne, like Jamal Agnew. Jamal Agnew is a really good example. But also they have Doug Peterson, who's a gambler. He's a guy who's going to go for it on 4th and 5 at the 50. That kind of thing. And I think that for him, having those change of pace or trick plays is important. You have to have sort of that catch him off guard play. You have to sort of try steal possession sometimes. Obviously they felt strong, then they didn't have the look, then they did, and it was weird, but it worked. And so it was a situation where it is a situation in Jacksonville where they're not going to rely on the trick play, but they're going to throw it at you. They're going to have all these end arounds, reverses, things like that. And whenever Jamal Agnew is on the field, it might be a little tricky to see that this week because Zay is going to most likely be out. But whenever he's on the field and Zay is active, it's most likely going to go to Agnew, and they're most likely going to get him the ball in a sort of weird way just because of the playmaker and the type of player that he is. But yeah, they have these guys, and they definitely acquire players because they know that they fit a certain skill set that they like, and they're not afraid to use them. This isn't a bland offense. It's an offense that's interesting, and you're not necessarily going to know exactly what they're going to do on any given down.
Right. Yeah, it's a fun offense. And Agnew, that 39, it sticks out, but he's certainly a player.
I was going to say the same thing.
Oh, my gosh. Trust me.
Is that another running back in there? Is this what personnel is this? Yeah.
Yeah. He frustrates me even just with that with that 39. I think we asked him about it last year, and he said he likes the ugly number and he's going to keep it. So it is what it is. He admits it's ugly, but he likes it. So I guess
Embrace the ugly. My last question for you, Demetrius. What is the expectation for Jacksonville? To me, they were a trendy pick this summer. They were my pick that could really contend with the Chiefs, the Bills, the top upper echelon AFC teams. They're kind of in that maybe tier 2 category. They're 5-2 right now. What do you consider a successful season when all is said and done for Jacksonville this year?
Yeah, they're on the right track. I think that coming into the year, I said they would be about 12-5, and here they are at 5-2, and I still think that 12-5 is perfectly reasonable to expect. I think that the expectation is for them to win the division pretty easily, the AFC South, just because of the other teams within it. I think the expectation is for them to be competing for that number 1 or 2 seed, and to me those aren't really big expectations considering where they were last year, how they started this year. They already beat the Bills. They did lose to the Chiefs and the Texans, but you can sort of see how this team could, keep going. They can keep this streak alive. I really do think that this is a very even improved team from last year, top to bottom on both sides of the football. Maybe you can knock them a little bit for the offensive line just because of the changes. But other than that, it just feels like, this team is still ascending and they're still trying to figure it out, and they're winning while they're doing that. So to me, the expectations are incredibly high. If they lose more than 6 games this year, that would be very disappointing for them.
Demetrius, I'm in my mid-50s, so I've seen the Jaguars play the Steelers quite a bit, and came away disappointed on quite a few of those. The Steelers are 6-7 versus the Jaguars all time in games played in Pittsburgh, and that includes, of course, 2 playoff losses. Mike Tomlin is 5-4 all time against the Jaguars, but he's 1-4 against them in games played in Pittsburgh. So you know where I'm going with this. The Jaguars are 3-point favorites on the road against the Steelers in this one. How do you see this one shake out? And feel free to throw out a score prediction for our listeners here.
Yeah, I think the Steelers are still trying to find, obviously, their identity on offense. I think that's telling with the tape. I thought that last week when Deontay Johnson came back, they did look a lot more coordinated. They look a little bit more organized. So I do think that they're going to give the Jaguars a little bit more than what you would normally expect. The issue that the Steelers have is sort of the issue that all teams have against the Jaguars, is that they haven't been able to run the ball consistently. And so I think that that's going to ultimately be their downfall, and Jacksonville's, sort of going to take advantage of that. I really can see this game sort of going heavily in the Jaguars' favor, not super heavily. I do think that the Jaguars offense is going to do well, but I also know that the Steelers defense can be good. Obviously, at times with TJ Watt, Mika Fitzpatrick, all those guys back there, I think are studs. Maybe not as good as they used to be in their heyday, but here they are now. So with all that said, I do have the Jaguars winning 24-14, which might sound crazy. But I really do think that the Jags are sort of red hot right now, whereas the Steelers are sort of waffling a little bit. And so that's where I'm at.
All right, Demetrius. So, well, look, fantastic job. First timer on the Terrible Podcast. Not sure when these two teams will meet again. Who knows? Maybe the Steelers can sneak in the playoffs, and maybe we'll be talking later on in the year there. But Alex and I certainly do appreciate you coming on. And once again, thanks for being on the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And again, our special thanks to Demetrius Harvey. First time on the show, but did a great job and loved talking with him. Again, he covers the Jaguars for the Florida Times Union and Jacksonville.com. Follow him on Twitter at Demetrius82, or at least shout him out and say, hey, thank you for coming on the show and giving up some of his time to talk with Dave and myself.
Yeah, great first timer, right? Not all, we've done this long enough now that we don't get that many first timers, but over the last couple of weeks this season, due to who the Steelers are playing, we are getting that. So it was a joy having it on. And who knows, Alex? Maybe the Steelers keep putting some W's up throughout this season. It probably wouldn't be a shock to see those two teams meet in the playoffs.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, if you had to pick up an opponent, you assume Jacksonville was going to win the AFC South, and if Pittsburgh becomes a wild card team, that seems like a reasonable wild card matchup, Dave.
Yeah, but thanks to Demetrius, and make sure if you get a moment to shout him out on Twitter and thank him for his time.
For sure. All right, Dave, let's do our own preview of this game, Jacksonville and Pittsburgh, 1:00 p.m. on Sunday at Acrisure Stadium. Pittsburgh 4-2, Jacksonville 5-2. Both teams coming off of Week 7 victories. The Jags having that mini bye as they played on Thursday in Week number 7, beating the New Orleans Saints. Let's start with the Jaguars offense here, led by Trevor Lawrence, a ton of talent with skill positions, ETN, Ingram at tight end, Ridley, Kirk at wide receiver. What jumps out to you first when you watch this Jacksonville offense, Dave?
Offensive lineman on the move and Travis Etienne on the edge. Those are the things that really, really jump out to me. Man, they get those offensive linemen on the move. They do good with misdirection with that kind of stuff, and it looks like a lot of their success in the running game comes when they can get Travis Etienne outside on the edge. Now they do have had some limited success running in between the tackles, but it really seems to pop when they can get that young running back of theirs out on the edge.
Yeah, and the number that shocked me the most was, and Demetrius made this point, Travis Etienne leads the NFL in carries, 127. The whole debate was in 2021, Najee Harris versus Etienne. Those were the top two backs, and Pittsburgh was always, really locked into Harris. And part of that was that work horseback mentality. They can shoulder the load. I mean, Etienne maybe he's getting more carries than what they want, but not only does he lead the NFL in carries, he leads the NFL in offensive snaps for a running back and snap percentage for a running back. He's playing 80% of the time for them. So I think he's doing a good job. I know the numbers from a yards per carry standpoint are down a fair bit, but I think he's really become their all situations type player and a home run threat every single time this guy touches the football.
Yeah, they'll get creative with him too. They'll shoot him out from the backfield in motion and get the ball out in his hands that way to him as well. They'll run a lot of quick screens to even Ingram. They like working the edges, not only in the running game but in the passing game as well too. I pulled up the last 6 passing charts for Trevor Lawrence as well, dating back to week 2. And if you're a Steelers fan looking at that, and I would imagine Jaguars fan, I haven't looked on Twitter or whatnot, I'm sure they're yelling, throw the ball to the middle of the field more. Well, they haven't had to because they work the edges so well overall. They are a offense that probably gains most of their yards outside the tackles, and definitely outside the tackles in the running game, and probably closer to the numbers and out when it comes to the passing game.
I'll say with the running game, though, you're right. They're kind of more of an edge team, but they run some power football. I mean, they'll counter, they pull guards, and they run these pin and pull schemes. So it's not all, obviously toss or outside zone or kind of finesse. I mean, they will run some power stuff, but get their back out on the edge that way.
Right. They will indeed that. And look, they'll still run some inside stuff, and they've had some limited success, but where it really pops for them in the running game is on the edge there. And look, I pulled up that clip from who was it against? The Colts, I think. There they'll put ETN in the backfield, wildcat him, and run some of that wind back of Ingram coming across or wide receiver coming across, and then circle him back, and then pull the guards the opposite direction and get you going one way, and then boom, ETN's on the edge that way. So there's a lot to look out for in this game. They do a great job with their motion. They do a great job with the misdirection aspect of the game as well too. And the Steelers defense has really got to be on their keys when it comes to not allowing these plays out on the edge.
And there's some trickery in this offense. You mentioned the Wildcat touchdown. That was the first play off of a turnover against the Colts. They go out there in Wildcat, kind of a read option with ETN. He keeps the football, and it's a 22-yard touchdown. So just big momentum, game-changing type plays there. They've run fake punts with Logan Cook, their punter. I think they had one against the Saints, and I believe they converted that. They have a wide receiver pass by Christian Kirk to ETN. They do some stuff with Agnew, who's been a great return guy. I remember back in college, right. San Diego, not San Diego State, but literal San Diego. He's a great return guy there. Did it for Detroit, and he's kind of getting involved in some of this motion and window dressing, but out in space type stuff for them. So Doug Peterson's a guy that's always been aggressive and kind of done some funky things. So Pittsburgh has to be ready for some unique plays this weekend.
Right, exactly.
And then in the pass game, traditional guys, Christian Kirk's been awesome for them. Calvin Ridley maybe been underused a little bit, but a big time threat 1v1, still making some big plays for them. I'm a huge fan of Evan Ingram. Dave mentioned that to Demetrius. He's used all over. They run some split back. He uses that sniffer to help deal with some of those mug and A-gap pressures that teams like Pittsburgh are using more and more. Be out in space, but he's athletic. He made a sick one-handed catch against maybe the Colts it was. So that's a pretty unique guy at tight end, I think.
Yeah, and that probably explains why they brought in Washington this week to get a good look on the card team with him and all like that. It's like having another receiver out there with the things that you can do with him. You can collapse him down to the end of the line of scrimmage, or you can split him out and use him in the passing game that way. I tell you what, better not turn your back on Trevor Lawrence. I know he's got a banged up knee and all like that, but even in this game against the Saints, he showed that he's not afraid to take off with the football. So not only do you have to worry about their eligibles, fine eligibles that they have as far as receivers go, and worry about the running game and all. But when Trevor Lawrence drops back, you better have a good contained system set up, because he will take off with the football either up the gut or around the edge.
Yeah, I'll say that's the only downside to like the Alex Highsmith spin move. As potent as it is, it can give up contain when it doesn't work. Or even when it does work and get some pressure, it'll flush the quarterback to his left, and there's often a vacancy there. Think about the Stafford touchdown to Atwell. That's what happened on that play. So I'm not knocking Highsmith for that rush, but those spin moves do have a downside to it. And Lawrence is a guy that is certainly able to run with the football.
Right. And as far as the passing game goes, once again, they tend to work towards the sidelines a little bit more than not. If they do pass over the middle, it's usually more in the 6 to 10 yard variety. They don't do a lot down the middle of the field between the numbers more than 12 yards past the line of scrimmage.
Which makes sense when you have Kirk and Ridley on the outside. Not really a true slot receiver in this offense. It's really more Ingram, and he's done his work. He's done his work, I think, to the edges, but more underneath. They don't work the seams as much. So that all tracks. How about this offensive line? Robinson, I think, a left tackle, solid. You mentioned, can you attack the right tackle, the rookie Anton Harrison against TJ Watt? Watt's seen a lot of younger rookie type of tackles this year. Can he take advantage of that? Obviously, Jacksonville's going to give a lot of help to him, I'm sure. Scherf has been a really good guard, played in the NFL for a long time. So it's probably an underrated offensive line, not an amazing one, but I think it's a solid group of guys up front.
It feels like scheme wise and execution wise, I don't know, how are they on chunk plays? Probably it doesn't. If they're coming a lot of after the catch or on the ground with I'm sure ETN has his share of 10 or more yards. What I'm getting at here is they're very much a ball control, move the football and execute 5, 6, 7 yards at a time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the numbers I have here, they have 19 runs of 10 plus yards. That's tied for 13th in football, so just a bit above average. In the pass game, they have 18 completions of 20 or more yards, which is tied for 19th. Lower than what I thought it would be for their skill guys.
They're not an explosive team overall, but they do execute, and they ball control, and they march on down the field.
Yeah, and I think they get some yak. You look, the touchdown that Kirk had against the Saints, that game winner. I mean, that was a short little jerk route. He outran the entire Saints secondary. So, I mean, yeah, on paper, maybe the numbers aren't there, but I think Ridley in space is a dangerous dude. I think he's a great route runner, a great player overall. I think Kirk has made some huge plays for them. ETN is explosive, had some probably bigger plays last year than this year. So, I just get worried about those 1v1 moments, especially with the Pittsburgh secondary not tackling that well overall this year. They better tackle well this week, Dave. You miss a tackle, I think those guys can pop a big play.
I worry about having a situation like you had against Houston there, where you're not good on first and second down. You put them in a lot of advantageous, even if you get to third down, when it comes to that. As with any opposing offense, the more second and long and third and long situations that you can get in, you want Trevor Lawrence to hold the football a little bit longer and trying to make plays. That's when he's more apt to get into trouble. But I don't think he has a lot of interceptions overall. Look, this team is +6 in the takeaway giveaway category, and that's equal with what the Steelers are at this point. And Trevor's not throwing a lot of interceptions. They're protecting the football overall as a team. This feels like yet another one of those games where if the Steelers are going to keep it close and have a chance at the end, they're going to have to get a key takeaway or two away from this offense that's been good so far at not turning the football over.
My last point on the Jaguars offense is watch out for play action on 1st and 10, especially the first play of a possession. They love doing that. They did it 3 times against the Saints. And so they're going to, on some of those quote unquote run downs, they're going to play pass you and try to go for a big play. So watch out, play action, 1st and 10.
And they will try to trick play a time or two, probably. So,
oh, yeah. Yeah, bag of tricks for Doug Peterson. All right, flipping over to the defense here. I think it's a good group. It's not it's kind of like the Rams, not a bunch of huge names, but they got a great pass rusher up front and Josh Allen, a couple of first-round picks. I mean, I think Trayvon Walker's the most forgotten first overall pick of the last, maybe 20 years. But I think he's playing some good ball for them. He's athletic. His hustle on wide receiver screens really jumps off the tape to me. What are your impressions of this Jacksonville defense?
I think if you look at them raw statistic wise, and we talked to Demetrius about this a little bit as well too. Statistically, maybe if you look at them on paper, they don't look great, but they do a great job overall when it comes to explosive play, run, and pass aspect. Those guys up front really do play to run well. They for such kind of a no-name unit. I mean, Adam Gotsis, how long has he been around?
A long time, maybe 7 or so years, I think, in the league.
And their nose tackle, a lot of former undrafted free agent. I think a lot of their guys up front are just kind of hard working type of dudes. So they're not outside of their edge guys in Walker and Josh Allen. They're not a high sack team, but they are more of a constrictive front that provides pressure that way. I think they do a good job overall with contain. They're predominant on the back end, a zone defense. They tackle the catch well. They don't give up big plays. They're a hard hitting unit overall. I think the Steelers front's going to be hard pressed to maybe get that run game going. But if they can get that might be the trick of this thing, is if you can get that run game going, building off some play action maybe off that kind of stuff. But they are predominantly a zone team that prides themselves on not giving up explosive plays, stopping the run, tackling the catch, and they have a lot of takeaway. They lead the NFL in takeaways entering this week, and 7 of those I think are fumbles, and we all know how those aren't as predictive as much. But they seem to attack the football and try to want to rip it out.
Yeah, I know the fumble recoveries can be a bit fluky, but they're forcing fumbles. They're really, ball searching and looking to punch that football out. And so that's a personality of them. Yeah, who would have guessed Jacksonville leading the NFL in takeaways?
Mm-hmm.
Not on my bingo card. It's kind of a weirdly numbered defense because they've allowed 10 passing touchdowns, but they don't allow the big plays in the pass game overall. They have 9 interceptions this year. I believe that's second in the league. But they only have 13 sacks. The numbers don't really jive, but
Right.
They're working. Situationally, they're strong. They're good on third down. They're good in the red zone overall. You're right. That front is kind of a mismatch of underrated journeyman, but also top 10 picks. And Walker and Allen, Allen 7th overall, Walker former 1st overall pick. So the edges, I think, are really strong, and they play the run hard. They're not allowing a lot of yards on the ground, and they stay in their base defense a fair amount too. They're really going to stay in their 3-4 even against some 11 personnel. And commit to stop the run and make you pass. And can Pittsburgh win with that much of a run game? That's typically not been how they've tried to been able to win games over the last 2 seasons. So they're going to have to find a way to run the ball more efficiently, more effectively this week, because I think it's going to be a tougher challenge against the Jaguars than it was against the Rams.
Yeah, I agree with that as well too. I forgot to look how they are at directionally. Maybe I'll pull that up right now to see how they are as a team by play direction, and specifically against the run. Because remember last week, the Steelers seemed to be able to run a little bit outside against the Rams.
I'll just mention really quickly as you're looking that up, the Jaguars have missed 52 tackles this year per Pro Football Reference coming into the week. That was tied for 5th most in football. So you see it on tape a little bit as well. So I think there's some after contact chances here because Jacksonville has missed more tackles than you would like to see as a defensive coordinator for them.
These are some raw, obviously, stats here. Would have to drill it down and look at how some of these happen here, if there's any quarterback scrambles mixed in with this. But 23 runs to left guard against them have averaged 5.70 yards, and that's ranked 29th in the league when it comes to run directions that way. Across the board, the rest of the way, though, pretty damn sound. Their worst ranking as far as directional goes outside of that 29th to left guard would be to right guard at just 18th overall, but only 9 runs against them. So not a large sample size that way. Same with left tackle. They haven't been attacked off of left tackle with runs that much, just 9 of those for 2.33 yards, ranked 2nd in the NFL. They're good around right in. They're ranked 1st in the NFL on 26 runs that way there. So, just, and that's a pretty large subsection. Up the middle, 51 runs against them up the middle, tabbed up the middle for just 3.08 yards per carry, ranked 5th. So the Steelers have had problems running kind of that inside zone and duo stuff up the middle. Probably not going to have a lot of success with that. I might try to work more to the left side, and that's where the Steelers seem to have some of that success against the Rams last week there. So I would really test that left side over there when working on the run.
Yeah, I would say just from a run defense standpoint, they're a bit of a hybrid front. Their guys kind of play up and down. They're more of a one-gapping, slanting type of team. So can you try to work some angles and maybe Zorro toss or some power type stuff potentially? But I think these guys are going to be able to execute some of these reach blocks and kind of cut off that penetration. And if you can, then you're going to get in the second level. You're going to have some space. And so, then you're going to get some big plays that way. But can you stop that first level penetration, those negative plays Jacksonville wants to create? That'll be key.
They are living off the turnovers, though. So don't, look, Kenny's been good last couple of games. I mean, the team overall has been good. The Steelers have, don't give them the free ones, because that's the thing that sticks out with them is their takeaways on defense so far this season, the way they've played against the run, top to bottom. They don't look like much on paper, but and I think if you look at raw statistics, they're not great, but that unit's getting it done for them. It's a very it might be the league's most underrated defense.
I think you're right. And their linebacking core, I should look up the pronunciation, and I apologize. I hate not pronouncing names correctly, but their linebacker, the former Falcon, Olakin, I think it is, Foyside Olakin. He's played every single snap for them this year. He's an every down guy. He's got 81 tackles. I mean, he does not come off the field. He's an aggressive blitzer. And so that's a guy you got to watch out for, I think, especially on 3rd down.
Yeah, look, we'll see the Steelers do what they do, especially against some zone stuff there. Probably see some back shoulders in here, working outside. Try to get situations where you get those corners up and pressing and try to work your deep shots outside the numbers there. I don't see a lot happening. Maybe overall over the middle of the field, it'll be a bit surprising if the Steelers go that way anyway there. But I think you can attack the edges in the passing game, especially with that kind of patented back shoulder stuff. Like to see more of this Deontay Johnson, more of these just slants overall that we saw against the Rams, and you're gonna have to be smart at finding your spots in these zone defenses and trying to get the ball tucked and run after the catch with those.
Yeah, their zone personality. They run a lot of cover 2, a lot of cover 4, especially against 2x2 sets. And so maybe you have to attack the seams more against cover 2. I mean, that is the whole shot, but trying to throw, true vertical is going to be tough to do against quarters coverage. It's going to be hard to really get the ball, vertically, I think. So you're going to have to kind of sit down and find some zone beaters. And I think maybe sit over the middle of the field, and the tight ends do get involved a bit more this weekend. I will say
I don't worry more. I don't worry as much about them being able to complete passes out on the edge. The one thing that really obviously helped this team against the Rams was the yards after the catch. So once again, we're probably going to be able to point to the yak for both teams in this game as potential, assuming there's not a lot of turnovers or anything like that, as being a main factor in this game. I worry about the Steelers being able to get their yak in this game.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the Jaguars have missed a bunch of tackles this year, so hopefully there's a chance for that. But they do keep a lid on things. They don't really allow the big play overall, the explosive pass play, and so they want to just try to keep things in front. That's really has become typical across the NFL. I think every defense is kind of working too high and just trying to keep a lid on stuff overall. I think although on any situation where we get a fourth down, if you're ever in that situation, the Jaguars do man up. And I've seen mesh concepts really work well against them. So if you get late game or kind of being aggressive, you're on a 4th and 2, 4th and 3, expect some blitz, expect man coverage, and maybe try to come up with your best man beater then. And then I would just say as a kind of a final situational thought, anytime you're kind of in that red zone, around the 10-yard line, 8-yard line, they're going to drop 8. They're going to try to drop 8, constrict windows, and really make life tough on the quarterback and only rush 3. So just a minor point there about how they've kind of rushed on tape in some goal line situations.
And the answer to help with all this was run the football better,
Yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh, it's a must. They have to run the ball effectively. They did that against the Rams, and you saw the offense just kind of find some more cohesion, and they sustained better. But the Jaguars' run defense has been really tough. And so, it's a tough front to run into.
And the biggest note, overarching thought on all of this is the Jaguars is coming off of a long week here, so they've had plenty of time to prepare.
Yeah. What's the injury situation for them? I know Demetrius mentioned it. Is there anybody of critical importance to them that we're really watching for on today's final injury report?
I think that wasn't their left guard banged up and one of their cornerbacks banged up, and then I think Zay
Jones, the receiver.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to play, but I think they've been without him, haven't they?
Yeah, I think he's missed some time. Yeah, I think Demetrius, mentioned Andre Sisco, their safety, Tyson Campbell, kind of the names I'll be watching for today. But yeah, I think Zay Jones is gonna miss this one. I believe they're gonna get back Devon Hamilton as well to kind of beef up that interior defensive line.
All right, Dave. All right, I think that's got it wrapped up on both sides of the ball there, and special teams, just be on alert.
Yeah, watch out for the fake. Logan Cook, the punter, has thrown a couple in his time in the NFL. Okay, Dave, before we get to our Steelers-Jaguars picks, let's be ready to make our Week 8 picks overall. But before we do that, let's hear from our friends over at MyBookie.
Absolutely. Let's do it. Aaron Rodgers' season is officially over, but yours has just begun at MyBookie. NFL, college football, and a brand new cash out system give you options to bet and win all season long. The first 2 legs of your parlay hit for you. Cash out early and place another bet, or let it ride for the chance at a bigger payday. Join us at MyBookie for an entire season filled with daily odds boosts, same game parlays, and huge prize pool contests. Right now, MyBookie has a no strings attached cash bonus that lets you deposit and withdraw quick. To get that, use our promo code TERRIBLE. That's terrible. On your first deposit of $50 or more, and you can receive up to $200 in cash instantly credited to your MyBookie account. That's promo code TERRIBLE to claim your own cash bonus now. You can bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. And to get there, you go to mybookie.ag.
All right, Dave, we are both what? 0-1.
0-1.
Yeah.
They let the they let the Buccaneers mark. Boy, how many play drive was that at the end of that game, and aided by penalties and all like that to let Tampa cover that one there. But let's see here. Let's get into. We are both 0-1. Let me make sure I've got this sorted correctly here. We'll get into the rest of the games here. Minnesota Vikings on the road against the Green Bay Packers. The Vikings are road favorites trying to get back in this thing, into the race. They are favored by 1.5 here.
Where's this one at again?
In Green Bay.
In Green Bay. I'm still going to go Minnesota. Jordan Love has really struggled. Jordan Addison, he looks like an emerging guy for them. Give me the Vikings.
I'll take the Vikings late 1.5 in that one as well too. Minnesota's really got to have that one to stay in the race here. New York Jets at the New York Giants. Jets on the road, favored by 3 in this one.
Yeah, I'll go with it. It's a tough one. Good defenses on both sides, pretty aggressive. I think the Jets defense a bit better. No, Tyrod's done okay for them, but I'll go with the Jets.
I'll go with the Giants in the upset in this one. I'll take the Giants plus the 3 points there. New England Patriots on the road against the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins at home laying 9.5.
It's a big line. I know the Patriots coming off a really nice win against Buffalo. I'm going to go with Miami, though.
I'll go with Miami, lay that big number, 9.5. Hopefully they win it by hopefully I think they can win that by 10. Falcons on the road against the Titans. Is this going to be the last game for Derrick Henry as a member of the Titans? Falcons on the road favored by 2.5 points against Tennessee in this one.
And what the quarterback situation is for Tennessee is going to become probably quickly relevant for Pittsburgh Steelers fans because the short turnaround to that Thursday game, Tannehill not going to play. Doesn't sound like. Maybe Will Levis is going to get the start. Some Malik Willis sprinkled in. All that to say, I'll take Atlanta, assuming that Bijan Robinson plays, and I think he's going to play. But that was a weird one with Arthur Smith last week with him.
Yeah, I'll take Atlanta later 2.5 in this one along with you there. Philadelphia Eagles on the road against the Washington Commanders. Philly laying 7 on the road.
Yeah, that line's too small. I think I'm taking the Eagles easily on that one, Dave.
I'll take the Eagles with you at later 7 there. Rams on the road against the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys at home laying 6.5 against the Rams.
I'll go with the Rams. I'm still impressed with them. You know, Dak's had some mistakes. That defense not as strong. Give me the Rams.
I'll take the Cowboys. I'll lay that 6.5 at home in this one here. New Orleans Saints on the road against the Indianapolis Colts. I will not be watching this one. Saints on the road laying 1 point.
You and me both on not watching this one. Man, the Colts really got jobbed in that Browns game. I'll go with the Colts as the home team.
I'll go with the Saints, lay the point. In this one, the Houston Texans on the road against the Carolina Panthers before maybe they sell some people off here. Texans laying 3.5, and I think the Texans are coming off the bye too, aren't they? 3.5 on the road against the Panthers.
Sticking with the Texans, Dave. Give me Houston.
Yeah, Texas just a better team here. I'll lay the 3.5 with you there. Cleveland Browns on the road against the Seattle Seahawks. Not going to have Deshaun Watson, I don't believe, in this one. Seahawks at home laying 3.5 against a good defense.
Right, it's P.J. Walker getting the nod. Don't know when Watson will return. Yeah, picked against the Browns. They find ways to win, even though that win against the Colts was pretty controversial. I know I'm going to go with the Browns on the upset. They've been fine. They're like Pittsburgh, finding ways to win.
I smell a rat here. I smell a rat here. Want you to jump on the Browns here. I'll take the Seahawks covering this late cover. I'll lay the 3.5 points against the Browns here. Denver Broncos hosting the Kansas City Chiefs. They just played against each other a couple of weeks ago, did they not? On a Thursday night or a Sunday night game or something like that. Anyway, the Chiefs won that one. They're favored by 7 on the road against the Broncos this week.
Man, does the Broncos always kind of find a way to play Mahomes pretty tight? How did he do in that first matchup? It was 19-8. It was not a great game. I'll say Denver finds ways to cover this one.
I'll say the Chiefs find a way to blow them out this time. I'll lay the 7 on the road against the Broncos here. Ravens on the road against the Cardinals. Boy, the Ravens look great against the Detroit Lions. Ravens on the road laying 9.5 against the Cardinals.
Will Kyler Murray play? I guess is the question for this one. Either way, though, I'm going to go with the Ravens.
Yeah, I'll go with the Ravens late at 9.5. They got that offense clicking there. Cincinnati on the road against the 49ers. 49ers at home laying 4 against the Bengals.
This one's tough.
Let's talk about Burrow being able to play a little bit under center now.
Yeah, with him getting healthier.
With him getting healthier, you're going to take the. I guess there's a little bit of question maybe at quarterback with the concussion and
Purdy, right?
Yeah, with Purdy there. I think the 49ers will be fine. They laid an egg against Minnesota. I think they bounce back. I'll lay the 4 points at home against the Bengals there. Let's see. Chargers are hosting the Bears. Who are the Chargers? Laying 8.5 at home against the Bears.
Yeah, it's a big line though. And the Chargers, they don't seem to win those big games. I'll say Chargers win, Bears cover.
I'll take the Chargers, cover that 8.5. I'm finally maybe breaking out on offense there. That leaves us, I think, with the Raiders visiting the Lions. Lions laying 8 at home against the Raiders.
Yeah, I think the Lions are going to be properly pissed off for that terrible showing against Baltimore. They're going to take some anger out on the Raiders. Give me Detroit.
I'll take Detroit late 8 as well, too. That circles us back to the Steelers versus the Jaguars in Pittsburgh. Jaguars right now, 2.5-point road favorites, and the history against the Steelers hasn't been great.
No, it has not. What, 1-4, Tomlin, as you said, against the Jaguars in Pittsburgh? Is that the number on
I'll
Tomlin?
have to pull it up real quick here while you...
I think that's what you said. This one was tough for me. I really kind of had a similar feeling as the Rams game, not super confident either way. And, you know, I've been really impressed by Pittsburgh. Again, winning close. That's been their MO. I give them so much credit for finding ways to do that late. I just look at Jacksonville with the skill guys, with the Pittsburgh secondary has been so just frustrating, inconsistent, prone to the big play. Can Pittsburgh run the ball effectively against a Jacksonville front that's done well against the run overall? Again, I'm not super confident here. I'm taking Jacksonville, though, 23-20 over the Pittsburgh Steelers, 23-20.
Very close to me. We're gonna make we're gonna get a lot of I thought you guys were Steeler fans comments here. The Steelers are 6-7 versus the Jaguars all time in games played in Pittsburgh, and that includes 2 playoff losses. Obviously, Mike Tomlin is 5-4 all time against the Jaguars, but 1-4 against them in games played in Pittsburgh. The long week for Jaguars to prepare. I feel like this feels like a kind of a letdown game to me for the Steelers here. I know I said last week they they've got to show me and all like that. I just think the Jaguars are a better put together team on both sides of the football. I think they're an opportunistic team on top of it. I think the Steelers keep this one close once again, but I think they come out on the wrong side of this. My score is very similar to yours, but I do have the Jaguars winning and covering in this one, 24-20. That ought to upset the listeners here. Both of us pick it. Both of us picked against them last week, though, didn't we?
And we're both wrong, so maybe we'll hold hands on our wrongness again. I mean, we always pick close games because they're always in close games, and yet Pittsburgh always wins close games. Maybe we should pick the Steelers whenever we have a margin, like either they get blown out or they win close. Those have been the literal 2 outcomes of every Steelers game this season. All 6 of them have been either blowout losses to the 49ers and the Texans, or close, last second type of wins. And if we pick it close, maybe we should start taking Pittsburgh.
Look, as I have talked about here, these next 4 games, all of them are very winnable, I think. And I think this is but I really think the next 2 after this against Tennessee and Green Bay are very winnable. So, even should the Steelers lose this game, I know there's going to be some doom and gloom and all like that. I still think that this team, can go 3-1 potentially, especially I think we're looking at that Browns game several weeks ago being, all right, well, they lost against the Jaguars. They beat Tennessee. They beat Green Bay. If they can nail this win against the Browns, I think they'll be in good shape. I don't have a great feeling again, with this game against the Jaguars overall. Hopefully I'm wrong. I just think the Jaguars are just put together all together better. The Steelers can't afford any turnovers in this game, and they're going to have to force a couple again on the other side of football. So we'll see how it plays out.
If they win this game, though, what does that mean? That means they've beaten a couple of really quality teams. I think
really
the
does.
Rams, the Ravens, and the Jaguars.
Look, what would they be, 5-2? I mean, I don't care how you do it. 5-2 is 5-2, and then you have once again you have the Titans on the short week, and then a long week to prepare for a Green Bay team. So this team really will be riding high and looking. It'd be hard. Look, it'd be hard to envision them not making the playoffs if they win this game on Sunday.
Sure, 5-2. I don't know what the history says, but I imagine the history of 5-2 teams is pretty darn strong, making the postseason.
All right. Anything else to add to the picks and all like that now that we've made the listenership angry?
No, I think we're good. Let's get to a couple of reader emails and close out today's show.
All right. Let me pull it up here in the email machine. Lee Greenspan, first of all, thanks for all the great content everyone at Steelers Depot puts out. Second, Dave, how you doing health-wise? Hope everything is going well on that end. I'm doing very, very well. I've not been better and this good in such a long, long time. As for my Steelers question, been keeping an eye on the weather since I'm making my yearly trek out to Pittsburgh for the game. It's calling for rain the whole day. Feel like this is a big advantage for the Jags with the running game versus our run D. How do you see this affecting the game? I haven't given a lot of thought to the weather at all, but if it is a wet game, I would put it in favor of the Jaguars, to be honest with you.
I mean, in some respect, it's going to slow down their pass game and some of their, Ridley and maybe ETN speed a bit. But I don't know. I don't really know what the research says on some of the weather type stuff. I think wind really affects things more than rain, to be honest with you. So I don't know if it's going to have a significant impact overall.
Yeah, I hope the weather doesn't ruin your trip out there, Lee. I've heard kind of conflicting report. Just a couple of days ago, I thought that they thought maybe the rain was going to hold off, but I haven't looked at that overall. I do think if it's a very, very wet game, that it would favor the Jaguars. So just because of how they run the football there. Deshaun Campbell writes in, "Sup guys, wanted to piggyback off a question asked last podcast on players would love to see this team trade for." He says Alex said CJ Henderson, but how would you guys feel about a JC Horn or a Jeff Okudah? Both guys are young and have pretty good experience. And last let's see, I forget how he's got this word. Allen Robinson. He likes Allen Robinson, but he's an older guy now. I'm wondering how much, if any, do you think a guy like Hunter Renfrow would help this offense? Once again, Renfrow probably does want out of Vegas at this point, and obviously a slot option and all like that. What's his contract look like at this point?
I forget. We had talked about that when they played the Raiders. I asked the Raiders, beat guy about his status because Renfrow was not touching the football at all, and it does feel like that's a guy that is going to get dealt here before the deadline. He signed that contract a couple of years back, and then they went out there and signed Myers and traded for Adams.
He's got a $6.5 million base salary, so let's cut that in half. What the Steelers would be on the hook for. So you're talking about, let's say it was $3 million. Just sounds a little rich for the Steelers. Could they manage it? Yes. Short answer is yes, and he is under contract through 2024. He's got an $11.1 million base salary in 2024. Technically, could you pull off a trade for a guy like Hunter Renfrow? I suppose. It's just another one of those names that I would be shocked if they did something like that.
I like Renfrow. I think he's a great route runner. I wouldn't mind him in Pittsburgh. I just think Pittsburgh, they like their slot guys. Robinson kind of the bigger blocker type, and Austin kind of their shiftier slot guy. I don't think Pittsburgh has a real appetite to go acquire another third slot type of guy, especially with Deontay back. So I get it. I like Renfrow a lot. I think he'll be a good fit for wherever he goes. I think he will be one of those guys traded before the deadline. I don't think Pittsburgh will be the landing spot.
All right. What about Jeff Okudah or JC Horn?
Yeah, Horn's a guy I think they're going to want to keep. They want to, have some of those young guys to build around for next year. He's been hurt too. I'm not even sure what his status is, frankly, right now. Okudah was a former top pick. He got traded to Atlanta. I haven't followed how his Falcons career is going. I think Atlanta's trying to compete. I don't know if they're looking to unload guys right now in a pretty wide open NFC South. So I think those are, Horn's probably a little pie in the sky. I think Okudah is more realistic, but I just really don't know a lot about him, and I really don't know if Atlanta's in a position to start selling players right now.
Another kind of trade question here from Ethan Warner. Hey, David Knox, appreciate the all-year Steelers coverage you and the fine folks at Steelers Depot do for the people. Kaiir Elam has been a healthy scratch for the Bills for most of their games so far this season. I think Elam's scratched last night as a healthy scratch.
Yeah, Norman got the hat.
he says, I'm not sure if he fits our scheme or plays on the right side, but do you think he could be a potential trade target for the Steelers? Look, I mean, you got a pedigree guy there. I believe the Steelers' interest in him was at the combine only, was it not? I don't think they brought Elam in a couple of years ago for a visit. It is a bit curious with the situation that the Bills have over there that he has been kind of scratchy. Could he be a guy that the Bills try to deal away?
I think it's a realistic name in terms of, I think it's good dot connecting, guy that's kind of fallen out of favor for whatever reason in Buffalo, pedigree guy, that makes sense. But, Pittsburgh, what is his role going to be? Elam's role would be in Pittsburgh, and they just brought Rush in. That's kind of their upside, toolsy type of guy. So I think it's more realistic than like 95% of the names that we've heard of. And I did see that on Elam last night and kind of had that thought as well. I just don't know what Elam's role or purpose would be, and who, is he going to take Pierre's spot? No. Is he going to take Rush's spot? I mean, he just got here, so I doubt that. I don't know how the pieces fit. So I would say no to that, but I think it at least makes sense on paper as a realistic name.
And look, he is a former first-round draft pick in 2022. So what would they be looking to kind of get for him, especially considering that they're probably not in tear it down, sell-off mode? If the right – it would probably take the right deal, and yeah, probably not a first rounder for him. But you would at least want a second round for.
No, I don't. I think his value's. I mean, if you're inactive and you're kind of falling out of favor,
okay.
I don't know what the package would be. I don't know if it's going to be, maybe a 4 if they're trying to get rid of him. But like you said, I mean, Buffalo can't hold on to him as well. It's not like he's a free agent after the season.
Look, of all the names that have been thrown around, Elam would probably be in the more believable category when it comes to a pedigree guy, and basically what's going on with him right now.
I just don't know, like, how does he help you win? What is his role? What is his function if you acquire him? I mean, I get, again, the on papers aspect of it, but I just don't know what he does for you.
Right. But of all the names out there, right?
Yeah, I think it's a sensible name, and obviously Levi's not played well. They're looking for corner help, but is Elam going to come in and start right away? I'm not sure if I see that either. So I think as you see Porter play more and more, that's going to put Peterson, giving him more right cornerback snaps, and that's going to be the way they kind of handle this thing. How
mad is this fan base going to be if there's nothing done on the Steelers end here in this next week?
Oh, I'm sure there'll be some frustration. But again, the NFL trades, maybe they're getting a bit more active in recent years, but they're not like the NBA or MLB or NHL that's always super active this time of year. So, I mean, I've come to not really expect much at the trade deadline. I know Claypool got dealt last year, and these things can't happen. I'm not saying nothing will happen, but in the NFL, it's not as trade happy as the other professional sports leagues.
Titus Haig writes in, just speculating, but I'm wondering what the status of Chris Wormley is. Shouldn't he be about totally healed from his ACL? And if so, once Heyward is back, do you think they will cut Loudermilk and bring Wormley back? I think the ship has sailed on Wormley. I know Wormley's had a couple of workouts.
He signed with the Panthers. Is he still with Carolina?
Squad? Was it practice?
Yeah, it looks like early September he signed with the Panthers practice squad. Has he played for them?
Is he still on their practice squad?
I can check. I hadn't heard anything otherwise, but I can check. I don't know.
I'll look real quick here. I'll pull it up here.
I don't know if they would cut. I mean, I think we talked about, Loudermilk or for Hoko. Yes, Wormley's still on the practice squad right now. I don't know if they're. I don't know. I mean, maybe they could sign Wormley off the 53, but I don't know if they have a good feeling of his health or status right now.
Well, here's the thing: when Heyward gets activated, that's going to take one spot that we talked about, either Loudermilk or Fehoko.
Mm-hmm.
If you went out there and absolutely had a guy like Wormley, who on top of it would you cut the other one? The
other one, yeah. Which I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I can buy that. Is it a plausible suggestion? Yes. Do I think it's going to happen? No. Fair. That's probably a realistic answer.
Nathan Casey, why don't they make a special jumbo package with Broderick Jones as a second tight end? He's an athletic run blocker, would definitely help against 5-man D-line fronts and in short yardage. Also, why don't they look at him more if Chooks is struggling to start on the right side? The kid is talented, and even mistakes now will pay dividends more in the future than Chooks, who might not even be on the roster next year. My guess is the starting tackle combo, he says, for the Steelers next year is Jones at left tackle, Dan Moore at right tackle, but I would settle for the reverse of that now to get the most talented upside out there this season. I'll answer the first part first. Could they stand to get Broderick Jones on the field as an extra lineman for 3 or 4 snaps a game? Yes.
Why do you think they haven't?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I think there's probably some chances they could have done it and haven't done it. I mean, there is, obviously you lose an eligible, but it's not like Darnell Washington is catching a lot of passes. So,
right. And
obviously you can have both those guys out there. I'd like to see it occasionally.
Even if it screams run, I would say throw him out there for a handful of eligible snaps.
Sure. So I think it's a fair point. I mean, Pittsburgh has sort of teased the idea from time to time, but we have not actually seen it. So I don't know how much they're repping it and those types of things. They've obviously, had some injuries there to Moore, which maybe, messed up their plans a little bit. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing it once or twice.
Look, anything to help this run game, and once again, by putting them in there, you're screaming that you're going to probably run the football, but why not try it 3 or 4 times?
Yeah, I'm with it. In terms of the future, I mean, I'm good with a core for it. Right tackle, he's getting paid. I mean, he's not been great, but he's not been a liability or anything that screams this guy has to be benched. And, Jones has limited work at right tackle, in game, that type of stuff. So I'm not expecting Jones to replace a core for this year at right tackle. Next year, how's it going to go? I'm really not sure. I haven't thought about that next year configuration too much.
One last one, Mark Urbaniak. Hi, David Alex. Sorry if I mispronounced your name, Mark. Keep up the great work. You guys keep getting better. I noticed that there are no buys this week. There are also no buys in week 12. He says, I never remember this happening. I was wondering if you heard of a good reason why. I think they are planning something. Tinfoil hat. He says it seems to give an advantage to all the teams that still have to take their buys by pushing them back 1 or 2 weeks. Baltimore has theirs after both weeks of no buys, which is week 13, 7 weeks after ours. I have the last 5 years of buys below. Why do they have 2 teams off 1 week, 4 teams others, and 6 teams off 2? Is there a reason to not having 8 weeks? Ooh. Mark, you've done a lot more research on this than I have. I'm not going to pretend like I know the answer to this, and I don't know if I would have this would have jumped out to me had you not brought this up. So good research. I'll take what you have in the email here as gospel. I don't know the rhyme and reasoning behind this.
I don't either. I don't know if the 17-game schedule is messing something up. Maybe it is. Maybe it is not. I really don't know there. The other thing I can only offer is that just because I've seen the commercial 1,000 times, isn't the schedule not basically computer generated by whatever that is, Amazon powered technology, whatever the ad placement is?
I think his main takeaway here, though, is that this is the first time that no buys for teams in week 8 and week 12.
Right. But I mean, that just going off of, okay, how is the schedule created? And I think it's now done basically with a computer and an algorithm, as opposed to, I think it used to be basically manually made by an entire team of staffers and would take forever to do. So I guess it's just a quirk of the schedule. I mean, again, that's just in terms of how they make the whole thing. And maybe that's just the way it was, the best way to make it. I really don't have an explanation for it other than to say with it kind of being in a computer more than it's being made by people, that's just kind of what it ended up spitting out.
Mark, if I had seen your question ahead of time, I would have maybe tried to Google this, but and maybe I will here over the weekend or whatnot, but I don't have any answer for you why it's worked out this way.
I don't view it as a conspiracy, though. I just think it's one of the many quirks of the NFL schedule.
Look, we try to learn and know as much about all of this as we can. We some of this stuff we can't know everything, and we have no issue at telling you listeners that sometimes we don't know, and I'll Google this, and if I come across anything, maybe we'll highlight it in the Monday show there.
All right, sounds good, Dave.
All right. I think we got through most of them there. We're running a little bit long as usual, but shout out to Demetrius Harvey for jumping on with us, covering the Jaguars and all. Make sure you shout him out on Twitter. Until Monday, let's hope that Alex and I are both very, very wrong again with our picks and predictions. However it turns out on Sunday against the Jaguars, we'll be back on Monday to talk about it. You can follow me on X/Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you'd like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, and find the ad-free button and do go that route, if you will. So great show, Alex. Enjoyed it. We'll be back on Monday. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.